Clear for takeoff. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of Haas Talks. Joining me in studio, Mr. Dragonfly himself, Kevin Reed. Kevin, thanks for flying down today to hop on the show with me, buddy.
Not a problem. Anything for you?
You've been involved in racing quite a few years. I mean, you've done a lot. So let's just jump in because everybody sees Dragonfly Aviation everywhere right now. So let's back up to before Dragonfly Aviation. You started here in Oklahoma. You're from Oklahoma originally, right? Where are you from?
I'm from right up the road in Claremore. We still have a family company there in Claremore.
So Claremore, born and raised, and you raced back in the day, like way back in the day is whenever you started racing here, right?
Ooh, yeah. I was thinking about it when you called me to ask me to be on here. I think they were still running Odysseys on the first race I ever seen here, and it was still called Rujo then. Then few years ago down the road, my brother, Robbie, him and BJ Fay were on the same football team, and BJ Fay drove these cars, and then I started tagging along with them in the pits, and
kind of snowballs
probably
from there.
like 97, 96-ish.
So you're a first-generation racer. Like your mom and dad weren't like heavy racers or race fans or nothing, right?
They like watching it. They know nothing about it, and it's not really their cup of tea. They love baseball. Baseball, football, that's my family.
Right.
Well, I grew up around.
Okay. So were you an avid baseball player, football player growing up?
I was a small guy. I wasn't really good at sports. I played, but I was never a superstar.
Right. So how old were you whenever you started racing?
I think you had to be 14 or then because Carbone owned the track. So
okay. So 14 years old.
14, 15, yeah.
You're not quite 40 yet, so you've been doing a couple of years.
Yeah.
You've been around it.
Yes, sir.
So you graduate high school, you go through high school, you race throughout those years. When was it that you stopped racing to pursue the career in aviation?
As soon as that summer I graduated, I raced probably a half season here, and my dad's like, if you want to race, you got to need to figure out how to pay for it.
Right.
I'm done. So after I graduated, I was actually going to Tulsa Technology to get my mechanics license to work on them. And when I was done with that, I quit and I went to flight school.
And so was that something that you like leading up to graduating? You're like, man, I want to be a helicopter pilot whenever I grow up.
No, I had no clue.
Yeah.
I was wanting to get my AMP, work at American,
right?
Do this local Port City deal, and just stay around here. And I went through a course called helicopters, and I said, that's what I want to do. And I asked Dad, I said, hey, I want to do this. He goes, figure out how to pay for it. You can do it. And I think, well, we put the race cars up for sale, and a few weeks later they were sold, and I was at flight school.
Man. So just like that, it just clicked, like something about what about being a helicopter pilot was like, oh, dude, that's legit. Like
they were just talking about the things aircraft can do. Like, search and rescue, that's a lot of cool stuff. Fighting fires and logging and just all the different adventures, the stuff you can specialize in.
Right. So you go through that whole training and that whole course, and you become a pilot, which is kind of strange. Like,
me a pilot?
Exactly. That's a truth. That's a definite truth. When was it that you left Oklahoma? Because you're now based in
Laredo, Texas.
Right.
I left Oklahoma in 2003, and I went to Long Beach, Mississippi is where the flight school was. And I was there until Hurricane Katrina hit, and the eye of Katrina hit where I was staying.
Wow.
And I met a guy after the school got took out in Norfolk, Virginia. And I was just doing whatever I could, get flight time, help him out. And he gave me a guy's number in South Texas, which was my boss, Alex. I worked for him for a few years, and I called him. I said, hey, I want to do what you do. And he says, when can you be here? And I said, how far is the drive? And he told me, and I said, well, I'll be here tomorrow. So loaded up everything I owned in the bed of a truck, and
off you went.
Off I went.
So have you always been that kind of like fly by the seat of, no pun intended, fly by the seat of your pants, like do you like really plan things, or you like whenever the opportunity comes, boom, you jump on it?
I go with my gut a lot. And if it's time to send it, I'm going to send it. If it's time to hold back, I'll hold back. But I wing it a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, fake it till you make it.
There ain't no problem with that. I mean, you've gone with your gut a few times here at Port City, and it ended up upside down with the crew guys scratching their heads. But
yeah, I tore up my fair share of stuff.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, if I do something, I'm all in.
So you go to South Texas, you work for Alex for a few years, and you that's whenever you start honing in on the skills, or you start learning more on how to fly, or are you already flying at this point?
I'm flying, but when you first get your stuff, you don't know what you're doing. Just like when you first step in a race car, you don't know what you're doing. So I was shadowing him. I was driving his fuel truck. I was cleaning his helicopter. I was making sure he had food. I was 100% just grunt. Like, we needed to leave at 4 in the morning. I'd be there at 3 in the morning to make sure his rig was clean, fueled up, ready to go to work. Then I'd drive him to a job. Then he was too cheap to let me idle the truck all day, so I'd sit in the 100-degree weather in his truck. I'd wait for the helicopter to come in, fuel it up, and go back out.
So what a lot of people don't realize is that you being a helicopter pilot, you're not just taking people from point A to point B. You're not limited to just one thing. You do a wide variety of stuff. And I really didn't, I knew of it because, I wrote the sponsor read for Dragon Fly Aviation, and I kind of saw some of the things you do. But then yesterday you sent me a really cool video of a pilot series of a TV show that you were going to be a part of. You do a lot. There's a wide variety, like you were saying, search and rescue and logging and different things. But now you're herding cows and you're checking wildlife, and
that it's kind of how my career happened. Is once I started flying, I wanted to be a flight instructor, get my time, fly offshore, work 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. Well, Hurricane Katrina happened. It didn't work out. So I had to do something else, and I went through the factory course in California for the helicopters I fly. And they were talking about cattle work, how dangerous it is. Do not do this. Do not do that. All that. And I'm like, well, if they say you can't do it, I want to do it.
Yeah.
So then it snowballed. Then that's when I got the job down there in South Texas. And they're like, oh, we catch animals. And I'm like, is that harder than working cattle? They're like, yeah. I'm like, sign me up.
Yeah.
I'm like, all my friends that went through flight school with me say I'm the last of the old school guys, because all their stuff is they go get a job with EMS, Care Flight. They go through weeks of training, and you have to do it this certain way, their way or no way. You approach rate 150 foot per minute and keeping it all extremely safe. And mine was, hey, there's a helicopter. Do you think you can do it?
Right.
And it's one of those deals, you look at it, scratch your head, I'll try it.
Yeah.
And you just go out and do it.
It gets pretty, just from the little 3-minute video you sent me, it gets pretty intense.
Very.
How can you correlate having to be focused in a race car to having to be focused in whenever you're out there piloting? I can guarantee there's at least somewhat similarities, right?
There's a lot of similarities on the focus side, but the controls are completely different.
Right.
If I want my nose to go left, I use my left foot in a helicopter. If you want to rotate a bigger car, use your right foot to rotate the car. So, when I'm in staging, a lot of times I'm telling myself, race car, race car, race car, race car, race car, race car, because opposite.
Kind of that checklist.
The checklist to change up what I'm normally doing, because I've thousands of hours sitting in a helicopter. Then I get in the race car and I want to send the nose left, and I step on left pedal.
And that ain't the way to go.
It will, but it's not the right way to do it.
So you go to South Texas and you start flying for this other guy. When was it? When was Dragonfly created, and why was Dragonfly created? Out of what means?
What means?
Did you meet Kathy before or after Dragonfly?
Oh,
which Kathy, if you don't know, is Kathy Reed, his wife.
Kathy, it was before Dragonfly, right around, because I was initially Reed Helicopters.
Okay.
It was right around that time, but I met her a few months before Reed Helicopters.
And so how did you, were you like, hey, baby, I'm a helicopter pilot? Or were you like, is that a story that I can see you looking down at your notepad, like, so is this going to be a true story or is this going to be lies? Oh, man. So we got to tell the PG version. Like
the PG version. I liked to drink beer back in the day, and I was a little bit of a partier.
You drank beer?
Oh, I was a boozer.
Again, for those of you that don't know, like anytime Kevin's here at Port City, we have Bob Stern 5, and we like to indulge and have a good time after the races. And every single time, Kevin drinks nothing but a NOS or a bottle of water, and he makes sure that everyone else is having a good time, and like you take care of everybody, right?
I tried to.
But there was one time that somebody coaxed you into it, and I just remember looking up and seeing you shotgun a beer, and I was like, I couldn't get my phone out fast enough to take a picture. And ever since then, everybody was freaking out about it because you don't ever, that's not what you do. Like, so we were all taken back. So you used to drink beer, right?
Yeah, I used to be a big drinker.
You used to be an avid beer connoisseur.
I was a partier. I was a big drinker.
We're just going to call it a connoisseur, not a partier, because it's a fancy word for it. Kind of like helicopter. I mean, it's a pretty fancy word.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're a connoisseur of the party going, the atmosphere.
Yeah, and my buddies from up here actually came down to see me in South Texas, and everybody knows the Tulsa Oilers. Back then, there was the Laredo Bucks.
Okay.
And she was at a Bucks game, and we went to Mexico that day and just got absolutely plowed. It was, we bought 3 huge red sombreros from Mexico, and we were pretty intoxicated.
Wonderful.
And beating on the glass at the hockey game, just being obnoxious. And I met her that night, but I kind of blew her off. I was like, whatever. I was like, leave me alone. me and my buddies went party, and then I ran into her 2 or 3 times more. And then the last time, my buddy looks at me, Bryce. He goes, "You're marrying her." I'm like, I don't even know her. And that night we danced and we got married. Now we got kids, and now we own a company together, and all that good stuff.
The initial meeting and the initial dance, did you use being a helicopter pilot as like
her uncle's flown since the 70s.
Oh, wow.
Her brother's a pilot.
So the gap was bridged pretty easy.
And I knew her brother.
Oh, wow.
And so...
But you didn't know that beforehand.
I knew kind
of her?
Not really of her, but I knew he had sisters. The first original night, he's like, "Hey, this is my sister." And he was like, "Stay away. That guy's nothing but a helicopter pilot."
Sucker.
So, like, when she's like, "Hey, what do you do?" She already knew I was a pilot. So I was like, "I'm a disco ball repairman, artificial ostrich inseminator," something like that. Like, I was just basketball inflator, just something.
And she was like, "Oh, no, I know you. My brother told me about you."
She never really did that one, but, I mean, she's like, she did it, but not like, "Oh, yeah, I know your brother." She's basically just saying, "You're lying."
Yeah. And so the rest is kind of history from there. So the start of the Dragonfly Aviation, was that something that you felt like it was time to step away from your older boss, or was there something that like you internally, like a fire that you wanted to chase after for yourself? Like a lot of people get complacent working for somebody and they're just fine doing it.
I would still be working for the guy I was working for Alex. I was going up to Alaska and working the summers, working the winters in Texas, kind of how the seasons fell. And he ended up, we were working for this one guy, and he ended up buying his own helicopter and going out. So when that happened, like, I didn't really want to work for the other guy.
Right.
I liked Alex, and Alex got me a job with another dude. Well, me and him kind of butted heads, and I just told him, "Well, if you're going to do that and you're going to treat me like that and treat me wrong, I'm going to buy my own helicopter and take all your work." And I didn't have a pot to piss in, and I said that, and I was like, "Well, I got to back it up now." So we started
Dragonfly
begging,
Aviation.
borrowing, stealing, started back Dragonfly Aviation.
So Dragonfly Aviation has been around for, how long have you been in business with that?
2010, I think.
So about 12 years.
Yeah, 2010, 2008, right in there.
So over the course of the years, you've built up something what I consider pretty big. I mean, it's pretty spectacular what you've been able to do and what you've been able to accomplish. But you didn't necessarily come from the money.
No,
sir. You're self-made. Like,
I've had good people behind me.
Okay.
Very good people behind me. I just came from a regular blue-collar family.
Right.
Don't have gold spoons, but don't have silver spoons, but was taught, like, you work and you set a goal, you go get it.
Right. So
that's what I did.
You've built it up from the ground up. Your first helicopter, which how many helicopters do you have now?
I got a few.
And you have a few guys that fly for you, right?
I have one full-time guy. Well, he's down in Port Aransas, and he gives helicopter rides, and that's for another company I own called Aerocopters. Then I got Dragonfly, and I got a bunch of contract guys.
Okay.
I don't have, with the type of work, it's very seasonal.
Okay.
I can't keep somebody year-round.
You can't guarantee them a salaried paycheck whenever
I can do that, but it's better paying those guys a little more
just for the season.
Just to come in on commission, and they want to work harder because they're based on commission. They want to do a better job because that builds their name under me.
Right.
And we both, I don't make as much, they make a little more, and it all works out in the end.
So you're a full-on entrepreneur, in a sense, right? Would you consider yourself an entrepreneur?
That's what my wife calls me, but I can't say that word. I'm just a redneck with
you can barely even tie your own shoes.
I can't tie my shoes very well. Can't talk very well either.
But you can fly the heck out of a helicopter.
I can fly the crap out of a helicopter.
And sometimes you can wheel a race car.
That's funny. On wheeling a race car, like everybody knows, Chris drives for me, and we got Chad down there. Them two, when I walk up, they know whether I'm going to be fast that night or not, just because it's such a mental thing and it's in your head,
right.
And they can read me. And I'm like, what am I going to do tonight? And they're like, we know. I'm like, tell me. Like, I'm trying to, change my attitude here because I want that good night every night.
Exactly.
It's just kind of a running joke.
So you made mention of you've had people help you along the way, and you've had the right people, whether it be just the camaraderie and the kind of teaching you, showing you some ways in business, and giving you hints and helps and giving you a helping hand here and there. You've kind of extended that through the later part of your life now. Like, you help others a lot.
I try.
And that's what a lot of people don't realize, and I want to point this out, is that you're not just some hobnob guy that has come from money and you're just passing on your inheritance. Like, you are actually out there working your ass off to provide not only for your family, but you help a lot of different people, and you give a lot of different people opportunities. And they may not be it may not be a recurring deal. It may not be an all-the-time deal, but you give people shots every now and then. What has made you want to do that?
I love racing. I think this sport, when at a younger age, taught me how to work hard. It taught me the high highs, taught me the low lows. And I like seeing that guy that's very humble in the pits, very quiet, that doesn't have the best equipment, but could probably do something. And I'm not saying we don't have the best equipment. We have nice equipment and well-maintained equipment. But if I can give him that shot and get to the next, just get him looked at, maybe picked up by somebody else, I don't know, it's a good feeling.
Right. Like, you're kind of a stepping stone in helping them, and you kind of helped Darren Stewart get back into a car after being out of it for so long. Just don't let him run without the wings. Keep the wings on the car for Darren, right?
I can't say anything about after a few weeks ago.
So not only do you help people in racing, I mean, you help this show out, which is phenomenal. You do a lot of things for your community. I mean, you're just a giver, and to give thanks back, I just want to give you a high five.
Thanks, Haas.
And now I want to hear some of those wild stories. I know you've got them of flying a helicopter. There's got to be just some crazy times that you might be able to share. I can't even describe. I went on a helicopter ride whenever I was a kid, and it was cool, right? But
Branson, Missouri?
No, I think it was the fairgrounds or something. You just flew around the fairgrounds, and then you landed in the news chopper or whatever, right? But you do some pretty wild stuff. And the time that you landed your helicopter in my front yard, I told somebody I bought it on eBay. I'm sorry, I have to admit that.
That's pretty funny.
I said, hey, they're like, Hoss, you got a helicopter? I said, I bought it on eBay.
We travel up and down the roads, and we land them on flatbed trailer, strap the blades down. We have a few hundred gallons of fuel on it. And we go job to job running the trucks. And when you're doing a long haul overnight or whatever, and you pull into a gas station, and everybody knows gas stations late at night, you see some characters. I mean, I'm a kind of a character, but when I say they're a character, they're pretty good. We've convinced them that they're remote control cars or remote control helicopters. We've convinced so much stuff. We just come up something random. One night we're like, oh no, it has no engine around in it. We just pull it around to try to pick up girls and just stupid random stuff, whatever we can think of.
That's a pretty expensive prop to try and pick up girls. But I mean, I could see it working. I mean,
you gotta know the guys I work with. Like I have one of my better crews I was working with there for a while was JJ and Jake, and we get a call from I think the University of Georgia, and there was some duck, a model duck. We know nothing about ducks. And they're like, hey, can you catch these ducks for us? We can't get them, and we got to put these backpack collars on them so they can
track them or
track their migration or whatever that. And I'm like, we know nothing about ducks, but we'll try it. And I said, this is my fee. And they're like, when can you be here? And we're like, oh, we can be there in a couple days. They're like, okay. So we get some different nets, and we mess with a bunch of stuff, and we're like, I think we got this figured out. So we hop in the truck, and we leave out of Laredo, and it's like a 24-hour haul to where we're going in Georgia. We drive, and I fall asleep. I was like, all right, I'm done. I get out, and I was like, next, go run about 2 hours, and we'll pull over and get a hotel. Well, I fall asleep in the truck, and they kept running, and we're like 2 hours out at 10 in the morning the next day where we're supposed to be. We get to the hotel, and they're like, oh, it's too early. There's no rooms available. So we call the place, and they're like, there's, what was it? This is where to meet us at. So we go there and meet them, and we've been up, or I've been sleeping. They've been up.
Right.
And they're like, you guys want to start today? And they're like, all right. Well, nobody's ever that we can find's ever net gunned a duck out of a helicopter. So nobody's ever done it before. I've called people in New Zealand, Australia. I called people out of Fairbanks, and everybody I know in the business, they're like, I don't even know why you're attempting that. I'm like, we can do it.
Yeah.
And well, we show up, and we're like, all right. Well, they have no sleep. And I'll tell you this, these guys work better hungover, because if you take it from them, they get the shakes, and they work better hungover. But they were just deadbeat tired. And we fired up the helicopter, and, well, we go catch these ducks, and nobody's ever done it before, so that was the first ever of everything. And I think we caught like 27 of them that time out, and they're like all excited. But we knew nothing about ducks, nothing. We just showed up and
shot the net at them.
Flogged the helicopter to get to them, and caught them and brought them back in. Then we were all mad because they needed so many caught, and they had to be 750 grams or more. And we'd come back, and they'd be like 748 grams. They'd be just covered in poop from the ducks. And they're like, we could have put a cork in it, like 2 grams, really? Like 2 grams is nothing.
Right.
And
2 grams is what I'm covered in right now.
Yeah, and they're like, nope. And they'd turn it and be like, all right, go out and get more. Well, that was a good time.
So in racing, do you have any goals or admirations of like, You come out here and you have fun one weekend. You know, you may the next 2 or 3 weeks you may be out flying, or the next weekend you may have Ted and Janky Bobby hauling a sprint car to Corpus Christi for you to run here. And I mean, you've got a wide variety of cars to pick from, whether it be micros or sprint cars, or you got a midget. I mean, like, do you have any goals of like, I want to chase this championship, or I want to win this specific race, or I want to do this or that? Or is it just right now you're just having so much fun, just living life and getting ready to retire in a couple of years?
I'm having fun. And for me, Terry Walker, I would have none of this race car stuff if it wasn't for him. And that race is coming up, and that's the only one I want to win.
Right.
That's my shootout.
So Terry Walker Memorial, you're coming into this thing with what class are you going to run? Are you going to run the non-wing?
I'll run non-wing and sportsman.
Non-wing and sportsman. Now, I mean, there is this guy named Darren Stewart.
Oh,
that's kind of the head honcho around here right now.
We got a huge group text going, and there's been so much crap talk. I sent him a picture of Rocky with the Russian, And it's like when they're on their standoff and they're hitting hands, I send him one. It's like, I will crush you.
Playing the mind games already.
Oh yeah, it's fun. It's fun. And what's cool is I raced with, I think it was Brad Best back in the day, and he always just whipped my butt. And he's going to be there, so I think
he's solid.
He's rolling, so I think it's going to be me, Darren, and Brad Best. It's going to be any of our nights.
Man, that's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to that one. Through the years, you've learned a lot. You've gained a lot of experiences, learned some things that you probably shouldn't have learned. What would be some, like, there's got to be a young person out there watching this right now, and they may be searching for, I really like driving race cars. Like I really want to be a race car driver, but their dad, their mom, they're saying, if you want to do this, you got to figure out a way to do it. Like, what would be some advice, some words of wisdom that you could pass on to somebody?
If they're wanting to get in a car, in my opinion, just show up. Show up. Mow somebody's yard. Get a pit pass. Show up. There's enough guys out here that want somebody to help scrape mud, clean the car, sweep out the trailer. Just be a hand. And there's a guy out of Texas I race with named J.D. Fry, and there's a good video about him. He did that for years, and he had his talks about his ups and downs on this video. And eventually the guys called him and said, "Hey, JD, what are you doing?" He's like, "Oh, nothing, just doing this." And he didn't have the money to do it or anything. He says, "Well, I'm done. Do you want all this stuff? Come get it and start driving." It made his story true, and all what he did was he scraped mud, paid his own pit pass, never asked for anything, just went and worked his butt off.
Do you feel like that's the problem? Maybe nowadays, the way times are going, everybody's looking for a handout. Like everybody's nobody's willing to put in the work.
That it drives me nuts. I mean, you got to put in work, whether whatever you're doing, outwork the guy next to you. Like we have decent cars, decent equipment, but I'll tell you this: you go down to our pits, Chris, Chad, when Craig's in town, Janky, they're all going to be outworking somebody.
Right.
During the week, Chris works 60, 70 hours. And I call him, "Hey, what's up?" "Oh, I'm in the shop." I'm like, "Man, why aren't you home with your family?" He's like, "Oh, we got to do this." And he's working his butt off. He outworks everybody.
Hearing it from the horse's mouth. Is there anything that we haven't covered that you want to get out to the world that you can't take it anymore? You have to tell people?
Secrets?
I mean, if you have secrets that we can share.
Nah, I'm not really big on the secret thing. I like being open.
Yeah.
I like being open and honest, and I don't like things.
So you are an open book. If people want to pick your brain about different things, you're more than happy to.
I'll tell everybody.
With them.
I'll teach somebody everything they know, but I'm not going to teach them everything I know.
So there you have it. You may run into some random facts, and you may get into a bet where he pays you with a water bottle full of pennies.
Have you counted that yet?
No, it's still sitting on the.
You need to count that because I've never shorted anybody a penny in my life.
So I'm gonna have to go back and look at all that. But Kevin Reed, Dragonfly Aviation, a strong supporter of racing, not only, here at the track, throughout the freaking country, really, and doing a lot of great things for a lot of great people. But remember, you got to outwork the guy next to you.
You got to outwork him, be honest, and just be straightforward. Don't. And then one thing that bothers me is somebody's like, "Hey, can you get this for me?" I like helping people, but I don't like being pressured into thinking I have to help you.
Right. If people are out there outworking the guy next to him and you see that X part or Y tool is going to help them and you see them really trying and giving forth the effort, you're probably going to go offer it to them instead of them coming chasing, looking again with a hand out.
That's like Chris and Chad, I think it was last year in one of the classes, him and Rosario were in a points battle, and it was pretty close. Something happened, and I think Rosario tore up his car. Chad and Chris, neck and neck in points battle. This would have been really good for Chris. They're up there. What do you need? And they helped them get the car back together, and they got to race the championship out how it should have been. Not like, "Oh, you broke out. Ha, it's over."
Yeah.
No, we're close. Let's battle it out. And
let's finish this thing out.
Let's finish it out because you don't want. That's
you don't want to win by default.
Yeah, you want to beat somebody on their best night.
Yeah, there you go. Kevin Reed right here on Haas Talks. Thanks for tuning in.
The Performance Electronics wideband O2 sensor with Bluetooth. With just 3 wires, installation couldn't be easier. Quickly connect your smartphone to our simple app to monitor your engine's air-fuel ratio in real time without gauges. The PE wideband O2 sensor is just one of many Performance Electronics products that can add brains and brawn to your next high-performance project. Find them all at pe-ltd.com.